You know what my favorite text is? A waypoint in the onX Hunt app to a goblin turkey. The list on the onX Hunt app features for chasing turkeys is long, but knowing exact public and private boundaries and land ownership details will help you find more places to hunt, whether that's on public or private. I'll be toting the Hunt app through the spring woods in a few states this year, and I recommend you do the same if you want more turkeys on your table. Also, onX has a special offer for you. Use code BEARGREASE to receive 20% off your membership at onxmaps.com/hunt this spring.
There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store, or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today.
Maui Nui is on a mission to help balance axis deer populations for the good of our environment, communities, and food systems on the island of Maui. They've shared over 126,000 pounds of nutrient-dense protein with the Maui community. Secure your spot now. Become a snack subscriber and join in helping to build more resilient food and ecosystems on Maui. Visit MauiNuiVenison.com. That's MAUINUI venison.com and use promo code BEAR for 20% off your first order. My name is Clay Newcomb, and this is a production of the Bear Grease podcast called the Bear Grease Render, where we render down, dive deeper, and look behind the scenes of the actual Bear Grease podcast. Presented by FHF Gear, American-made, purpose-built hunting and fishing gear that's designed to be as rugged as the places we explore. Hold on. Brent,
what?
Tell me what you've got on your chain, parts of it.
That's called a watch fob.
A watch fob.
I got a pocket watch on the long
tucked
portion.
into the top pouch of your overalls.
Yep, and then there's a watch fob there for decoration, and that is a sterling silver coon.
I just noticed that for the first time today. Where'd you get that?
That was a Father's Day present.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Where could a man acquire a sterling raccoon fob?
The fob come out of Austin, Texas, but the pocket watch come from London, England.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Clay,
pretty classy.
If you wasn't so young, you'd seen more of them. All the old timers used to wear them in their overalls, have the chain on their watch, and had something other.
Really? So that's a thing.
A lot of them would have stuff,
something on the end of it.
Yeah, you could probably order that through Nightlight.
You could. This right here is I can't remember. This watch is made in England, and it's hard to find a watch that.
Well, I'm gonna put a little video of your raccoon on my Instagram. Okay. So, hey, welcome to the Bear Grease Render podcast. My oh my, do we have a great show today? We've got a not so normal group of people. We usually have
on any level.
No offense,
what
please.
What do you mean by that?
don't take offense at that, guys.
Include yourself in on that.
Well, I do. No, so we've got one guest too. I'm going to always introduce our guests at the end. Okay, so we have one guest here who this is his first time. Usually the group of guys that are here and woman, my wife is usually on the podcast. We kind of have my dad, Gary Newcomb, my wife, Misty, Josh Spillmaker, Brent Reaves, and then the sixth person kind of comes in and out as a special guest. A lot of times it's Isaac Neal, but today is way different. Me and Brent are the only regulars. Now you guys are almost regulars, and I'll introduce that. But to my left, Brent Reaves. Good to see you, Brent.
Hey, buddy.
Beard's looking nice and trimmed. Looks like you got a little haircut.
Yesterday.
Okay.
Yesterday I went and got my hair pulled, what my grandmother would say when she went to the beauty parlor. But I don't. I go to a barbershop, a sure enough barbershop.
Glad you clarified that.
Yeah.
To your left, Rusty Johnson,
Hey,
my old
Clay.
buddy Rusty.
Good
You've been on the Render one time, and then you've been on the Bear Grease podcast at least once.
Yep.
Because you're a whitetail secret keeper.
I do have secrets.
You're the ultimate whitetail secret keeper.
I have a
So
lot of secrets.
He don't even tell his son
special
about it.
guest who I've not named yet. We did a whole podcast on whitetail secrets and basically explored how and why people keep secrets and how we distribute those secrets and how relationally as humans there's some like deep like psychological DNA stuff about who we tell stuff to. And so Rusty, he was one of our featured guests on the Whitetail Secrets podcast. So we can get back to that. But we're going to crack some of those secrets today.
Okay,
for sure.
well,
I
if you
doubt
say
it.
so.
Good luck, he said.
I doubt it.
So to your left is Rusten Johnson.
going on,
Rustin,
Clay?
Rusty's son.
Yeah,
And good to see you, bro.
it's good to see you too. I get some intel on some of those secrets, but I don't think all of them.
Really,
Yeah, no.
he tells you everything he knows.
Well,
he
no.
doesn't keep anything from you.
Look at Rusty's face when he says
He's
that.
got a funny expression right now.
Yeah.
I'd say maybe most, but no, the secrets are real. The whitetail secrets are real.
They're for real.
I would tend to agree. I get a lot of pictures from people on my phone and big bucks. And my first question is, hey, where's that at? And it's crickets. I mean, there's no more answer. I mean, I could ask another question, and it's just like
It's like that text killed him.
It's crickets.
Yeah.
It's crickets.
crickets.
Well, I got to brag on Rustin. Rustin, have you graduated from law school yet?
I finally graduated. I
Really?
got my
Oh, let's
JD.
sue somebody.
Yeah. No, let's do it. No.
So, man, that's a big deal.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Rustin is a whitetail guru killer
I love it.
and a lawyer.
Not
How old are
quite
you,
yet. I'm
Rustin?
taking the bar exam in February. I haven't
Okay.
quite taken it yet. I was supposed to take it back in July, but I got COVID and kind of stunted my studying, so I just put a deferment in and taking it in February. So we can't sue anyone
Great.
yet, but we can go.
We can't sue
But,
anyone yet.
I'm
It's
making a
October though,
list.
so we
I'm
can go
hoping
deer
that
hunting.
you can just defend Mo Shepherd when they finally come after him.
Yeah, maybe.
I might need a good lawyer. Hope you are a good one.
No, that's quite an accomplishment, man. How old are you?
25.
25. Married, 2 kids.
That's right. Rut and Huntley, if that tells you anything about me. My kids.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. You know, I took a little bit of persecution from a few people who remain unnamed
Yeah.
when we named our children, which were I've got a son named Bear,
Yeah.
daughter named River, Willow, but I like it.
Yeah.
Hunt. Say their names again.
So I had my daughter first. Her name is Huntley.
Huntley.
Yeah. And, that's good. But I remember on our hunt in December, I was excited to tell y'all, and y'all came down with fire. I said, I'm naming my son Bow Hunter. And y'all were like, oh, no. People are
Like
going to
2
make fun
names
of
like Bo,
No, one straight up, just Bow Hunter, first name.
Bo Hunter.
And, yeah, everyone at the camp was like, oh, that's crazy. So I backtracked just a little bit, and it's Rut now, R-U-T. So we got Rusty, Rustin, and Rut.
I'll be
So-
darned.
My son's name is Drake Hunter.
Yeah.
And that's when I was guiding, was a full-time guide. All the
Yeah. And I mean, I know him as Hunter.
And I thought my name was Go Get Wood till I was like 14.
Mine still is that.
So, Rustin, your wife's all on board with these names.
Oh, yeah, that was a first date conversation. Yeah.
First date?
Yeah, I said I'm a hunter, and she said, "Oh yeah, that's cool." I said, "No, you don't realize. Yeah, I'm a deer hunter."
Right on.
That's good stuff.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, skipping our guest who we'll introduce at the end, Mo Shepherd. Mo,
Hello,
good to see you,
Clay.
man. Great
to see you too.
You're an old regular on here.
Yeah.
You know
When
what's
you
going
can't find
on.
anybody else, you call me. So
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Well, I guess I'll call Mo. No, and to Mo's right is Ralph Meeker of the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission. And now you are what's your title? You're the deer biologist?
The state deer program coordinator.
State Deer Program Coordinator.
Yep.
Man, we're honored to have you today, man.
I got a question for Ralph right off the bat.
Well, let the man introduce himself.
Hurry up, because it's burning.
I'm happy to be here. Fire away.
Yeah. So you grew up in Arkansas your whole life?
Yes. Yeah, I'm from Sebastian County, born and raised in Greenwood. Of course, went off to college and got to live several places around the state. And I think I'm up to 52 counties now where I've harvested a deer.
Is that right?
52 out of 75 counties.
I'll be darned.
Yeah. So I just love hunting everywhere. I mean, this state is so diverse. I was telling somebody the other day that, there are very few states that you can hunt deer, whitetail deer, turkeys, bear, elk, and alligator. All in the same state. And the habitats that we have and the people, the communities, I just love traveling the state and hunting different places.
All right, editor, cut all that out. We can't tell all these people to come to Arkansas. No, we're supposed to tell them how hard it is, Ralph. I'm kidding you, man. I'm kidding.
It's a great place. I mean, it's amazing when I go to different meetings and meet different deer biologists and talk to them. They're all proud of their state, but at the end of the day, they're like, man, I'm coming to Arkansas to duck hunt. Is there someplace I can deer hunt while I'm there? So deep down, they're wanting to come to Arkansas and hunt deer.
Yeah. So how long have you been with the agency?
I'll have been with the Game and Fish 20 years in March.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long you been the deer program coordinator?
I have actually been in the deer program 10 years, a little over 10 years. I've been the deer program coordinator for about 5 now.
5 years.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I want to get I guess I'm afraid if I start asking you questions, we're gonna bypass a bunch of stuff. I've got 100 questions I want to ask you about Arkansas deer.
Who else don't?
Yeah, exactly. But
You're still not letting
Brent,
Brent ask his.
ask your question.
This
first.
is going to solve the mystery.
Okay.
3 episodes in a row I've heard on Meat Eater, Steve and everybody talking about the correct way to spell white-tailed. Is it white-tailed, 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 white-tails? I want to hear it from the guy from Arkansas. When you write a report,
It is white-tailed.
that's the way it. That's
Really?
the
That
correct way
is
to
the
do it.
official. That is the correct spelling of white-tailed deer.
Mark it on the calendar.
Really?
Yes.
So from a grammar perspective, there would be 2 adjectives that would describe the deer, so there would be a dash.
That's
like
right.
White-tailed deer.
That's
Double
right.
adjectives.
And it's only
Are those adjectives? I used to be an editor. It wasn't very good.
That's very good.
And it's only capitalized if you use it at the beginning of the sentence. So if you use it in the middle of the sentence, it's a lowercase w.
Okay. Man,
Yeah.
problem solved.
There you go.
Well, I guess colloquially,
That's it, I'm done.
we've turned the term whitetail into like a single word. Even with like North American Whitetail, the magazine, it's spelled as one word.
Yeah. But the great thing about it is when you say whitetail, everyone knows what you're talking about.
Exactly.
No matter how you spell it or how many hyphens you put in it, it's universally known.
I can hear the dash in there when you say it now.
Whitetail.
If you're an outdoorsman, you know what it is when
Yeah.
they say whitetail.
I got a lot
But is
of-
it white-tailed, ED?
Yes, ED.
So not white-tailed deer,
Nope.
white-tailed deer.
That's
White-tailed
correct.
deer.
White-tailed.
That adds out like another syllable. It's going to
That's
lengthen
why
the
they did away with
stories.
the hyphen and the ED.
Us hillbillies can't say that very good.
White-tailed deer
I
stories.
got a lot of edits to make because I wrote a law review article with whitetail, just one word. And
Oh, really?
I got an A on it. But
Really?
Yeah.
They didn't call you out for it?
No.
Well, your third child could be called White-tailed Johnson.
There you go.
That's a
I don't think probably not. Probably not.
That might not work. That might not work.
Feet
So
smart.
I said on the beginning of this white-tailed deer stories podcast that we just did. I had this collection of storytellers, and you guys all heard the intro where I made the statement that the white-tailed deer hunting culture of North America is really unparalleled in the world in terms of hunting culture. Do you guys agree with that? Ralph, would you agree with that?
Absolutely. You know that the white-tailed deer is actually is the state animal of 9 different states.
Okay.
I mean that's
Including Arkansas.
Including Arkansas. Yeah. That's exactly right. I mean it's people take great pride in the white-tailed deer. It's the number 1 sought after big game species in the world.
Yeah, yeah. And there's nothing when you talk about worldwide stuff, us being from America, sometimes we don't have insight into exactly how things are done in other places. Obviously, we're not experts on it, but you know, in Africa, for instance, there's a lot of hunting that goes on there, but it's seems to be much more general. Like they're after a suite of species, and certainly they hunt specific animals in Europe and the red deer and all kind of stuff. But whitetail deer, I feel like, is the wide geographic distribution of the whitetail in North America, coupled with liberal hunting seasons, big populations. Like, we don't realize how good we have it.
For real.
Yeah.
Even in the midst of us really valuing deer. Like, everybody in this room, and a lot of people listening to this, really value deer. But when I do have a lot of friends that don't live in the United States, and when they hear that I hunt deer on my 7 acres that I own in my backyard, it's just mind-boggling, and it's super common. I mean, you know, it really is an incredible thing. And I said something else, that we're in the heyday of whitetail deer hunting. Ralph, do you think that's a correct statement?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we estimate, or State Farm estimates, that we hit about 22,000 deer each year in Arkansas alone. It wasn't until the mid to late 1970s that 22,000 deer were harvested statewide. And we're hitting that many on the highways alone.
Just in Arkansas?
Just in Arkansas.
22,000 deer in Arkansas.
Yeah.
Wow.
With harvest being that low or lower, like you said, in the mid 70s or before.
Yeah. I mean, it's phenomenal in the last 100 years where we have come from in deer populations and deer management.
Why is that? Like, walk me through, just kind of at a high level, walk someone through from about the market hunting days of the late 1800s to 2022 when we've got deer numbers like we have. Like, just give us kind of like a high level overview of the extirpation, the reintroduction, and you can use Arkansas, but you can talk about the broader picture too.
Yeah. So in the late 1800s up into the early 1900s, unregulated marking hunting was almost the end to a lot of our species, not just whitetail deer. Black bear, turkeys, the passenger pigeon, all of these animals.
Black panthers,
that's right.
There's still a few of those.
Yeah, that'll be another episode. But with Theodore Roosevelt, the Boone and Crockett Club, early conservationists really brought forth the idea that if we don't take care of it, we're fixing to lose it. And so, with the passing of several excise tax, the Dingell Johnson Act, the Pittman-Robertson Act, the creation of the Department of Interior, state parks, then soon after followed a lot of state agencies like the Game and Fish in 1915. We started developing these game refuges, places set aside, both federal and state, and they really started these restocking efforts. And in the 1920s and 30s, they estimated that we had fewer than 500 deer statewide.
Wow!
And so going back and doing some research, there's a great book called Arkansas Wildlife, and it goes into a lot of these restocking efforts. But the Game and Fish, they were asking people who had deer as pets, they wanted to buy them. We started importing deer from Wisconsin, North Carolina, Texas, started stocking these game refuges, and then we had these game farms where we actually raised deer in pens that were captured, and then they were, once the fawns were born, we would stock those, and then we'd catch deer out of traps in different places like Felsenthal, White Rock, northern Franklin County, Black Mountain Game Refuge, and so they started moving deer around and populating these areas. And in 1938, we actually started recording, creating mandatory reporting for deer harvest. And in that year, we harvested 203 deer statewide. And so from the early 1930s up until really the 1990s, doe harvest was pretty restricted, and it was for the sole purposes of growing our deer population. In the late mid 1990s, a lot of places we realized, hey, that we better get a hold of this because the deer population is growing fast. And so then we went from growing deer populations to really managing populations, molding them into what we wanted. And this concept, in Texas, Mississippi, had been done for several years at this point. So we really adopted the quality deer management ideology, where we start looking at balancing buck to doe ratios and managing cross age classes and protecting younger bucks because up until the 3-point rule, about 68% of the bucks that we harvested were a year and a half and younger.
Right.
Now we routinely rank in the top 5 in the nation in the percentage of our 3.5-year-old bucks that are harvested.
Is that right?
So we have done a 180.
So about 96 or so, 95 3-point rule.
No, the 3-point rule was a 98.
Was it 98?
98, yeah.
Okay.
And so now, in 2016, the bomb got dropped on us and we found CWD. And so now we're having to rethink some of the things that we have really promoted in the past in order to combat, the spread of CWD. So, I tell folks, CWD is a bad thing, but disease management has always been part of the equation. It's just going to be a bigger part of that equation now, so that we ensure that we have deer populations for many generations to come.
Yeah, that's a good overview.
Whitetail Institute launched the food plot revolution in 1988 with a concentration on research and real-world testing of forage products specifically for whitetail deer. Whitetail Institute's research and development team of agronomy experts provide effective, personalized service. I've been using Imperial Whitetail Clover for a long time in a food plot back behind my house. In 2007, I killed the biggest buck of my life over an Imperial Whitetail Clover small quarter-acre food plot. Imperial Whitetail Clover is the only clover scientifically developed through years of selective breeding. Clover Extreme genetic stability provides extreme cold tolerance, disease, and drought tolerance. It really does. Clover is coated with Whitetail Institute's Rain Bond, a polymer coating added for enhanced seedling survivability. They have an exclusive offer for Bear Grease listeners, 15% off Imperial Clover when you use the code BEAR at whitetailinstitute.com. That's whitetailinstitute.com and use code BEAR for 15% off. Ready to win Mother's Day and cement your reputation as the best gift giver in the family? Give the moms in your life an Aura digital picture frame preloaded with decades of family photos. She'll love looking back on these memories and seeing what you're up to today. Even better, with unlimited storage and an easy-to-use app, you can keep updating mom's frame with new photos, so it's the gift that keeps on giving. And this is not a joke. Juju Nukem has an Aura frame, and we share photos, and they're incredible. Also, my mother-in-law has one. We have them. They truly are really good, really high quality. The Aura frame is easy to set up. It takes just 2 minutes to set up a frame using the Aura app. It also adjusts the display depending on light levels in the room to maintain the true color of your photos. For real, the digital screen is amazing. Right now, Aura has a great deal for Mother's Day. Listeners can save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $30 off plus free shipping on their best-selling frame when you use code BEAR, B-E-A-R, BEAR. That's auraframes.com. Use code BEAR at checkout to save. Terms and conditions apply. Sport Dog is the most recognized brand in the hunting dog training industry. Born in 2003 in Knoxville, Tennessee, Sport Dog was forged by a passionate group of hunters and dog trainers who intimately understood the challenges of the field and the special connection between hunters and their dogs. The people at Sport Dog know that having a well-trained hunting dog is more than just having a reliable partner. It's a commitment to their safety and unlocking their full potential. The Sport Dog promise to customers is simple: gear the way you design it. Every product Sport Dog builds is meticulously designed and rigorously tested in the field, ensuring it withstands the toughest conditions you and your dog may encounter. Trust Sport Dog, where innovation meets passion to elevate your hunting experience and strengthen the bond with your local companion. Using tracking equipment on my squirrel and coon dogs is extremely important to me to track my squirrel dogs and my one old coon dog that's not very good. Get 20% off your first purchase using the code BEARGREASE. Go to www.sportdog.com/beargrease to learn more.
When you hear the 1930s and deer harvest being 200 deer in the state, what's the deer harvest today in the state?
We're averaging around 200,000. These last few years have been kind of a roller coaster ride. In 2020, that was the largest record. That was our largest harvest on record at almost 217,000.
Wow. So that's a mathematician over here, my lawyer, from 200
I went to law school, not
200,000.
engineering.
Is that a 1,000-fold increase, or a 100-fold would be 20,000?
Yeah, 1,000
But
times.
what I'm thinking about though is that this wasn't that long ago.
Oh, no.
I mean, like, my grandfather was born in 1919, and he would have been, a teenager and a grown man during a time period when there just weren't that many deer.
Yeah, my dad was born in 1910, and he talked about when he got back from World War II that there wasn't no deer to be found.
Yeah.
That that if you saw a deer track out in the mountains where I grew up and where he grew up and lived his whole life and everything, that people would almost come to look to see the deer track because there just wasn't any deer around.
Yeah. Isn't that story wild? Yeah,
That's just
everybody
crazy.
tells that same
Everybody's got
story
it,
because it's true. See a deer track, you'd
Tell your neighbor.
you'd
Tell
call,
your
you'd
neighbor, and
tell
then their
people about it.
neighbor would go and tell somebody else, and where's that track at? We'd like to see a deer track. I've never seen one.
Well, and what surprises me about most of those stories is they track that sucker down and kill it too.
They were wanting food. So.
Yeah. No, but that it wasn't that long ago. And so you can see that in the span of a human's life, like, a lot can change.
Absolutely.
Which is really encouraging, but it also puts you on kind of red alert, with some of the stuff that's going on. I mean, primarily CWD and some of these other diseases that, when our kids and when Rut is an old man, should the earth even be here, which I don't think it will be, but will there be deer here? I mean, nothing stays the same.
Yeah.
It's always moving, but hopefully we can, that's why we're here.
I mean, you're exactly right. I mean, we are enjoying really the golden age of whitetail. I mean, I had the fortune enough to speak to a guy on a telephone just a couple years ago, and he was a founding member of a deer camp in Bradley County, and he was telling the other gentleman, he was the oldest man in his camp, and he was telling them about when we stalked deer in a game refuge that was right there on the county line, right next to their deer camp. And he had called me, and I did some research after talking with him, and I called him back. I said, I think you're right. But he said he remembers them opening the boxes. They had caught these deer in Wisconsin and opening the boxes and those deer jumping out. I think he said there was 9 of them. And he said there wasn't one hair on those deer.
Really?
They had shipped them by train down here. And he said he remembers when they first stocked that. And I think it was 1946.
Wow.
But, just to be able to speak to somebody that experienced history like that,
Yeah.
to be able to tell the other members of his camp, hey, and now they're harvesting 100 deer a year in that deer camp or whatever it is. And it's like, maybe they started from those first 9 deer. Yeah. And that's pretty neat.
That is. It really is. It really is. Who else had a question for Ralph, a specific question? Did you say you had a specific question, Mo?
No, I was just going to say
You guys are real mouthy
when he
until
was-
it tells time to.
when he was talking about the game refuge and stuff, my dad took me when I was just a young kid and showed me some of the old boundary posts and stuff of the Black Mountain Refuge and all that. And he said, we would drive over here just then sit here when it wasn't even deer season and see if we might see a deer,
Yeah, and a lot of deer camps, and I actually started deer hunting on White Rock. That's where our deer camp was when I first started deer hunting. And a lot of deer camps across the state, they were established right next to these game refuges.
Yeah.
When they opened up, they would allow people to camp there on the refuge
Yeah.
or adjacent to it, and that's where they hunted.
Yeah, that was what my dad talked about. He said when they allowed it to hunt, then that's where everybody went and hunted.
That's
When they
exactly
first
right.
opened them up, even though the deer were dispersed in other areas, the biggest concentration of deer was in those refuges.
Yeah,
And-
I mean that's part of the game. Is I mean where it says no hunting, that's where you go. That's where you go put up your camp, right?
The deer know. The deer know
Deer can
where to
read those
go.
signs.
That's exactly right.
Is that the biggest challenge now? Is it CWD, the stuff that y'all are dealing with as far as the?
I would say
mortality?
that's one of a few different challenges. CWD is definitely a big challenge. Number one is because we're still learning.
Sure.
I mean, on the grand scheme of things, I mean, CWD is a fairly new disease. It wasn't really identified since the 80s. They think that it started in Colorado in the 60s where they first discovered it. When they go back and look at all the documentation of deer that were exhibiting the same kind of issues, but the prion itself wasn't described until the early 80s.
Right.
And so the management of the disease on a grand scale of things is very, very new. So we're still learning.
Where do you fit on the scale? Like, so if a 1 is this is a hoax and a 10 is in the next 20 years there will be 0 whitetail deer on the landscape, where do you stand with the severity of the risk that CWD poses on a national scale to deer?
I'd say a 5, and I don't
Okay.
like to be the middle ground, but if there is a silver lining with CWD is that as long as you're not moving infected material, whether it be live or dead animals, on the landscape it does move rather slowly. So there is a possibility to get out ahead of it. And where you get out ahead of it and you implement these management strategies, there's a potential that you could slow it there. There may be places in the state where we're beyond that point.
Yeah.
Ground zero, Newton County, that may be kind of tough. Now, we might be able to reduce the prevalence rate, but as far as slow the spread from that area, we may not be able to do
Now,
that.
so Newton County, that's a good. I've got a question about that. That is where we first found CWD. It's
Yes.
where years ago, 70 years ago, they introduced elk in there.
In the early 80s.
And was it in the early 80s they
Yeah.
put the elk in there?
However,
So
we
50
actually,
years ago.
The Forest Service
there was
actually
elk
stopped
before then
in the
over in
40s.
Black Mountain,
That's
Mill
exactly
Creek
right.
area, and all in there.
There were several elk that were stocked in the 40s by the Forest Service in
Right.
northern Franklin County, and those disappeared, and we don't know what happened. Now, those mountain folks may ate them, but we don't know what
Mo
happened.
ate 'em.
Mo ate them.
I didn't, but I think some of my ancestors did.
But you're right. I mean, the elk that were in the Buffalo National River Valley there, those were stocked in the mid or early to mid 1980s.
And it's, I know there's maybe no way to prove it, but probably CWD came with them.
It's a possibility. It's
possible.
But at that point, when those animals were moved, nobody knew what CWD was.
Yeah, they couldn't have even measured it.
No.
They wouldn't have known.
And, in all honesty, we have been testing elk here in Arkansas since the late 1990s, whether found dead, whether harvested. And, we would, if we had it in the elk first, we probably would have detected it earlier on than when we found it.
Okay, so that's
Yeah,
what I'm saying. So maybe it wasn't elk.
So it's a good possibility that it wasn't from elk. I mean, we've had deer shipped in from all over places, illegally. It's really scary. Like I said, we talked to a lot of deer biologists across the nation, and in Wisconsin, their deer biologists, they put a map up of their hot zone, and then they show all the zip codes of where people come from all over the nation to hunt in that hot zone. And it's very scary knowing that those people are bringing deer back. So it could have been, it could have originally come from a carcass.
Sure.
We don't know that.
Gotcha.
And really at this point, it's,
really doesn't
the cat's
matter.
out of the bag. It
doesn't
really don't matter. Yeah.
Okay, this is my question though: is that deer populations in that hot zone in Arkansas are going down a lot though?
They are, and we don't know. We can't pinpoint exactly what that is. We don't know if that's because, and of course, we support those observations with our harvest numbers, and we don't know if people are not hunting there as much. We have a CWD research project going on right now where we're putting GPS collars on deer, and we're tracking them. We're looking at mortality rates. We're looking at reproduction rates, and so it could be that the prevalence rate of CWD in Newton County has gotten to a point where it may be impacting. We don't know that for sure until our research.
Could that be a good
completes.
thing where it dips so low that it? And I don't know the disease terminology, but where the population gets so low that the disease is weakened in some way, and then when they come back, they don't have it as much. Or
well, and so that goes back to one of our management strategies where we remove the 3-point rule. And so right now, research suggests that a buck harvest that's across all age classes actually can slow the spread of CWD, because when you have a lot of older age classes or age class bucks in a population, you know what happens when a 1.5 year old is there. He's gone. He's going to disperse.
Right.
And so if you can reduce that tension, that need for dispersal, maybe animals that potentially have it won't go as far.
Harvest.
we need to send Rusty over there to kill some forked horns like he usually does, right?
Yeah. I'll be more than glad to get on that.
And harvest being the only
Unlimited tags.
The only way to manage it is through harvesting, right?
That's exactly right. I mean, there's no known cure. There's no shot. There's no feed. Harvest is our only way right now that we can manage, and that's why having hunters is so important. I mean, if we stop hunting, we're really in trouble.
I saw a guy on YouTube one time. I'll send you the link. It may help you, Ralph. This guy, he was dead serious. He had some kind of mineral lick or something that he was confident was making his deer immune to CWD.
We need to get a crop
I'll forward
duster.
you that. I'll forward you that one.
I bet you I have seen it.
It wasn't a guy from Arkansas, but I watched it and I was just like, wow.
Yeah.
It was some I can't even remember, but
Yeah.
wow. Well,
It's probably got castor oil in it. You remember you get the pour it on the spoon and you put it.
Castor oil cured
some
everything
kind of
back
Cures
castor oil.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, CW. Everybody in the deer community has talked a lot about CWD, so that's not necessarily what all I want to get into today. But
you asked what other our other problem is, and one of them is hunter recruitment. There are fewer and fewer youngsters now that are hunting. There's a lot of
That is a
competition for their time. A lot of athletics, extracurricular activities, and so and when I was growing up hunting, I mean, when deer season happened, the world stopped.
Right.
For 9 days, that's all you did.
Yeah.
And we didn't muzzleload hunt or archery hunt when I was a kid. We were modern gun hunters. But for 9 days, that was it. That's what you did.
There used to be a time when you played baseball in the summer. Now they do it year round. I know folks that take kids every weekend to baseball games.
Same thing with basketball. It used to be a certain month, but now they have all these other sports camps and youth leagues and stuff that play nearly year round basketball and stuff.
Yeah.
So.
The Friday before opening day and the Monday after opening weekend, a lot of schools were closed.
Yeah.
I graduated high school in 1984, and the first day of deer season, or that Monday, even if it opened on a Saturday, school was out.
That's right.
yeah,
Same was where I was at Mountainburg.
And that was
deer
a lot
deer
of
days.
incentive.
Yeah, deer days.
Man,
Deer
I
days.
always hated it. My school did not have deer days, but all the smaller school, and we were a small school, but for the area, we were a bigger school.
If you hunted before you caught the bus or before you went to school, however you got to school, if you killed a deer that morning, you was late. If you brought in your hunting license where you had tagged deer, it was an excuse.
that.
Oh,
It was
sweet.
That's what I'm
Absolutely.
talking about.
Wow.
Hey, I remember multiple times. My dad's not here today, but this is a good story about my dad. I remember multiple times being in school, and we had a payphone in the school, and my dad worked at the bank. It was before cell phones, and it would be a fall day, and it'd be cool outside, and we would have gone outside, at lunch or something, and I was just like, man. I'd call my dad and say, hey, Dad, will you call and check me out of school? I want to go deer hunting.
I got to go.
Call him on a payphone, and he'd call the office, and 20 minutes later, the intercom would come on. Can we have Clay Newcomb? Can we have Clay Newcomb please come to the office? And I just kind of I don't know what's going on. I'll see you guys
I'm in
later.
trouble again.
Hey,
And,
one of my good friends, his dad said that when he was a kid, he would load on the bus with shotgun and his dog.
My brother.
And they would
Same
go
way.
to school, and he'd lean his shotgun in the corner, and the dog would sit outside. And then after school, they would hunt the fence rows for quail.
No way.
All the way home. And he said that's what he did, during quail season. That's what he did every day. And they let you get on the bus with a shotgun.
I'll be darned.
My older brother can tell the same story.
Really, taking a gun on the bus.
An A5.
Yeah.
That's
school.
wild.
They kept it on the school bus. The school bus driver was his football coach. They kept it on the bus, locked up. And when he got on the bus in the evening, he got off at a friend's house, and they went shooting wood ducks.
Wow. I think I've told this story before. If we're talking about guns at school, have I told the one about the
Principal coming out?
Yeah, old story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I brought a gun that my dad bought for me to school one day, and the principal calls me aside and he goes, "Hey Clay, I heard you got a gun in your truck," and I was like, "Yeah," and he's like, "I want to see it." I wasn't in trouble. We walked out to the parking lot, and he wanted to see it, just because it was a cool gun. Different day.
Yeah, we all had guns in our trucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All of us.
In the back glass.
Yep.
Had the old racks stuck in the back glass, and that's where they stayed.
Sure
Yeah.
did.
Well, so this podcast that we just came out with, this Whitetail Deer Stories podcast, there's going to be two. There's going to be 2 full episodes dedicated to Whitetail Deer Stories. Mo's going to be on the second one. He tells the story. When I hear James Lawrence, Andy Brown, and my dad tell a story, it's like I could just listen to those guys talk. I tried to imply inside of the podcast how, to me, those just aren't stories, but they're like really personal to me in different ways. Just like that's the sound of my world, And I kind of got into these deer stories are so cool because they do. I mean, we all like deer stories because we're deer hunters and we want to hear the details of what happened. But stories carry so much more than that, and that's what I tried to show and tell in some way, is that person to person, human communication is so valuable.
Yes.
I mean, it is so valuable. And I think the reason that I liked whitetail deer hunting as a kid was because of the way I saw my dad and the men that he hunted with, the way they handled it, the way they talked about it. It's like all this stuff's going on in my life, but boy, that's really important because the way they talked about it and the excitement in their voice and the detail that they went in. Because I'd hear those same men tell a story about something else, and it wasn't nearly as passionate. You see what I'm saying? I mean, just there's these default messages that are coming to you as a kid, and it
had value.
Yeah.
The value you had in it, and it's like you could tell those. I've heard Gary tell that story before, and I heard him tell it again, and I was as glued to it then as I was the first time because I had value in that, in telling that story to a guy that, somebody else that just played golf, or just played baseball or something, that he's not going to connect as quick because he's not going to put as much value in what he's hearing as you are telling it.
Well, I can tell you too, from being a kid, you're exactly right. I mean, those stories were valuable, but sitting around a campfire at nighttime with your grandpa and his buddies and your uncle and your dad and their buddies.
Yeah.
I mean, as a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old, you felt like you were an equal. I
Sure.
mean, and they were telling stories, and you're eating deer chili, and staying up past what your normal bedtime was, and I mean, it was just hanging on every word that those guys were saying, the stories that they were telling. It was just phenomenal.
Yeah, my dad and all my uncles were all hunters, and a lot of times they'd get together and when I was just a kid and be talking about their hunts from that year, the year before, or the upcoming hunts, and you was just glued to it, Even when I wasn't allowed to go hunting yet, when I was just a young kid, I can remember that, It's
Mo, were
wild.
any of those guys real good storytellers? I mean,
Almost
would you have would you have characterized them as that?
Yes, I would. I had 2 uncles and my dad. They're all passed away. All my family has passed away of my uncles and my everybody. But the 3 of them that hunted a lot together, they all could tell a pretty good story. I mean, it got you glued to it, like you was talking about your dads. And Brent was talking about listening to that story of your dads. You didn't matter how many times you heard it, you was stuck to it. You just sit there and you listened and on every word, and tried to pick out what was going to happen next, even though you knew what was going to happen next because you already heard the story, but it's still, you was just intent on wanting to listen to it. So
Yeah. What was, so the stories that were told, and I want to hear some of you guys' stories here in a minute, of the stories that were told on that podcast, Rusty, which one stood out to you?
The mine shaft.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, that's just extraordinary. I mean,
That is wild.
that was a wild story.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if I've heard anything close to that.
Yeah.
I mean, hoisting that thing up out of that mine shaft,
Yeah.
and it just only had a little bit of water in the bottom of it.
Yeah.
I mean, it could have been full of water.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was definitely out
How
of the
about
ordinary.
hunting where the mine? Y'all all missing the whole thing here.
Yeah.
Hunting where there.
That was
where there's
probably-
holes in the ground.
It was
Hunting where
probably
there-
not marked.
Yeah, hunting
Oh,
where
no.
there is
You don't want to go there coon hunting a whole lot.
Actually, hunting where there is a mine shaft is blowing my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it certainly wasn't marked. There wasn't a road to it. There's just out in that part of the world. There's just mine shafts, in random places, and yeah, I thought Randy did a good job of telling that story too. He, he just I like the way he told it, and I like one of my favorite parts was the very end when he said, and I went back with my kids, and that mine shaft was full of water, and there's a fish in it. I thought that was funny, but
Yeah.
no,
But that was good, Rusty, what you said, and there was a lot in there too. When he was telling that story about he called was it Andy?
Scott.
Called Scott.
Andy's
Yeah.
son and my good friend Scott Brown.
Yeah, called Scott, and he's like, "Yeah, man, I'm bringing you powder. I'm coming to you."
Yeah.
And that was the whole thing to me. Out of
Yeah.
that whole thing, getting that buck out of that was he called somebody he cared about, that cared about him, that knew.
who left work? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, to go out there and help him, man. I
That's
dig
camaraderie right there.
I dig it.
Yeah.
But the moral of that story is don't ever go hunting without telling somebody where you're going.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. One time in the Ozarks on public land, I remember I was turkey hunting. This is talking about a hole in the ground and telling somebody where you're at. I was turkey hunting by myself, public land, and I was hiking up this real steep ridge, and I stopped to take a break and was leaning on my shotgun, just breathing hard. And I looked down by my foot, and there was a hole about as big as a softball in the ground. It was kind of odd because there were no rocks around it. It was just leaf litter, and there was just a hole. And it didn't look like it was angled like an armadillo hole. There was no debris pile like where something had been digging. Just a hole. And I was like, that's weird. I took the butt of my shotgun and bop, bop, just kind of tapped on it. And that thing just collapsed.
What?
And opened up into a hole about as big as a beach ball. And it was so deep that you could drop a rock down and it would be like ding, 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 ding.
No way.
Yeah.
Really.
It was a sinkhole.
Wow.
You'd had a hard time falling in it just because, as big as a beach
wouldn't
ball,
have.
you'd have had to just like put your hands in the air and just jumped in it. But I was like, holy smokes.
I guess
man.
only one of my legs would probably fit in it.
Well, somebody had to come get you out.
It was in the Ozarks where we have this limestone shell and a lot of stuff, and the rocks dissolve. Like there are big sinkholes in the Ozarks. That's just what it was.
I'm telling all of y'all.
Yeah, it was weird.
There's game in flat ground for the love of humanity. Get out of the hills. You're gonna
Get out of here.
You're gonna get killed.
Russell, what was your story stood
I'll
out
tell
to
you
you?
what, but bouncing off of that, as a youth, my dad, he's a crazy deer hunter, and he didn't take up no slack with me as like an 8-year-old or whatever. So we'd walk in at 3:30 a.m., 2 hours before daylight, and then on the way back to the truck, I'd be like, there's a drop off right by the trail that we walked in. He's like, oh yeah, you shouldn't have fell into it. I'm like, well, I'm glad I didn't.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, we were going on some steep stuff. I was like, golly.
It's a secret.
I couldn't see anything in the dark, though.
Better follow close behind him. Favorite story you heard?
Oh, it was the mine chef for sure.
Mine chef, okay.
And then I really like, my favorite part was they didn't want to damage the antlers.
Yeah.
They're like, let's rethink how we're getting them out of here.
Yeah.
Because that's valuable.
That is
Brent,
good.
which one stood out to you?
That one, obviously, I mean, that's a 1 in a million.
Oh, you can't say the same one they
But-
did. Okay, new rule. Can't say the same one the other guy did.
Terry the Yankee. That was a good story.
Tony.
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 Tony the
Can't
Yankee.
even remember his name.
Terry.
Tony was good. No,
You like
and-
Tony's story?
And he told a good story.
Yeah, in the beans.
Yeah. And, he said everything that happened, he never thought it would happen.
Yeah, he'd already cursed himself.
Yeah,
he
he's
said.
already,
Everything going wrong.
Number one, we're going to have to talk to him about going to that wedding during deer season for the love of humanity. Who his friend absolutely was not his friend.
No, he wasn't a very close friend, or he would never have done that.
For real. So,
No.
but then, he didn't get to go opening day. And then everything that he proved the old point that you can't kill him at the house. Mm-hmm. Regardless, if you got an opportunity to go, saddle up and get out there. Mm-hmm. And then just when he thought there's no way that deer's going to come from there. There's no way that deer's going to keep coming. There's no way that deer's going to be 10 feet. Pow.
No way he's even going to see a deer because he ran in there and got all sweaty.
He's all sweat.
He had already wrote it off. I mean, he basically just wrote it off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And those are the funnest times when you get one and you really weren't expecting it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mo, which story stood out to you?
Mine that I liked the best was Andy Brown's about the deer, and the finding the tracks and hunting and killing that big deer. And then at the end of the story, he talks about, he said, but that wasn't the deer that I was after.
Yeah.
But that whole story, just the way he told it, was really good. I can associate with that because he hunts a lot of the same, not the same area, but the same type of terrain with the mountain saddles and all that that I do. And I could just see everything that he was talking about.
Man, when Andy and Scott and some of those other guys that they hunt with tell stories, man, sometimes somebody can belabor something so much you're just like, come on, get to the point. Sometimes people tell a story and you just want it to keep going, and you're sad when it ends.
Yeah.
And a lot of that has to do with context. Like if you pull up on the side of the road and talking to somebody while your car's running, you kind of got to understand this is not the time to give like the extended version of this story. Yeah. But in the right moment, in the right context, a good long story, especially from someone you deeply respect, is just what you order. And man, Andy, I love, and I actually had to cut down some of his story. So you didn't really hear the full version with all the pauses and different things just because the format, we had to tighten it up a little bit. But man, he tells a detailed story. I mean, it starts off with the scouting trip, and I mean, he just kind of went into everything. But what you learn from that kind of stuff is you learned a lot about how to scout, what to look for, when to move on, when to keep going, how his season laid out. I mean, if you listen to it, just like, okay, when's he going to kill this deer? You're missing the point. But there was, I was telling Misty, even him talking about a cottonmouth that he wished he'd have killed, and Andy's a great storyteller and a great hunter.
I like what Mo said a while ago. He left the story with that big track that was not the deer that he killed, so it sticks in your mind. And I've been wondering ever since. I wonder how big that buck was.
That track.
That big track. I mean, I'm wanting to go and see. You know,
It was a dope.
Yeah.
But
hey, I'm gonna. By the time this comes out, I will have already posted. But I'm gonna post a picture of the deer that he killed. It was a 19 point, just a wild.
He said it's 21 way he killed.
Yeah, that's right. 21 points.
Yeah, you can't count very good.
Heck of a deer, and it wasn't the biggest deer Andy's ever killed either.
He said he thought it was the second biggest, is what he said on that, wasn't it?
Well, if he said that, I don't remember the exact.
I thought that's what he said.
You should really listen to these things, Clay. They're pretty.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he said this was the second. I'm pretty sure this is my second biggest.
He
buck.
for sure said that he'd never killed one like it before.
Yeah, but then he said I've killed a bigger deer too, and he said I've come to think of it, I think this is probably the second biggest deer. Either that or your dad's story one, because I get them confused.
Yeah.
Your dad talked about it.
So my favorite story, I think, has to be James Lawrence. Even though Andy, Dad, and James kind of all were right there. And then as far as the excitement of the story, the mine shaft story, I loved that one. It's just kind of a shocking ending, you know. But James Lawrence, I mean, mainly because he's just my hero. And he, James is not a big storyteller. Like, if you're sitting around a room like this, like, he's not going to talk. Like, he's the guy that's just kind of sitting back, waiting to be spoken to. But when he talks, he knows what he's talking about. And I just liked James really got fired up about that deer, which you can kind of, I mean, because he was actually afraid the deer was going to run him over, is what he was trying to say. Because he had those hawks on, the deer was coming, and he never used hawks on his body again because it spooked him. And I mean, he's a veteran hunter, and if he tells me he was spooked in the woods, he wasn't being dramatic. He really got spooked. He thought that deer was going to run him over.
Yeah, my favorite part of it is when he said that towards the end of his story there. He said, he shot the deer and all that, and then I forget how he quoted, but he said, and I realized that deer was coming to me. He wanted to take care of me because he thought I was taking over his area.
Yeah. Oh, Ralph, which one stood out to you?
Man, the mine shaft to me was just one of those, like, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. And I've loaded a lot of deer, so I can only imagine two guys pulling that thing out of that mine shaft. But as a biologist, the clicker deer to me was interesting because I'm thinking the whole time, I wonder if that deer's grunters broke. Why is he clicking?
I was wondering what was going on there, too.
Tell us what. Do you have any insight into that?
I have no idea. That's why I'm thinking the whole time. I wonder if his grunters broke.
I've actually heard that.
Hey, before we go today, I got to introduce these.
I've actually seen those little things that he talked about, the little wheel thing you turn.
Yeah. Have you ever seen those, Ralph?
Yeah, but
click and call.
I really thought it was to imitate, bucks fighting, rucks. Yeah.
But I don't know, but that's.
But the click, I was like, that thing's grunter's got to be broke.
I've actually heard that one time in the wild.
What did it sound like?
Just like a tick, 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 tick.
Like a single.
Yeah,
click. Like a grunt is a series of clicks.
Distinct clicks.
So a grunt. No. I'm saying a grunt is a series of clicks. So
yeah.
If you could just do like one note.
Pop your tongue with it. Yep, that's it. So I've heard it one time in the wild, and it was in Arkansas. It was at Hollow Bend, and that's the only time I've ever heard it.
Huh.
I guess this is one of his deer secrets because he had never told me this.
I've not told you.
Not a clicking bug.
Come on, Rusty.
So
hold back.
When I first, there was 3 bucks, and when I first heard the bucks coming, it was like a loud, just a. I mean, I'm like, whoa, what is that?
Like a roar.
Yeah, I was like on a little island, and it was in the middle of a cut cornfield. Well, I seen the doe coming, and this buck was behind her, he was right behind her, and they come out there in front of me, and they stopped, and there was another buck run up there, and then another little 6-point run up, and they were just kind of circling her. She was out there, and that 6-point got over really close, and that biggest buck started.
Really?
Yeah, and he looked over at him, and he just charged him and hit him in the side and just rolled him.
Wow.
Yes.
So this story is confirmation of what Gary Newcomb said. Have you ever seen a Black Panther?
No, I have not.
How about Ivory-Bill Woodpecker?
It tastes like who else?
That is for real. That's
well,
good.
I've been hunting all my life, and that's the first time and the only time I've ever heard it. But I have heard it, and it was loud and distinct.
Well, he said them old timers he talked to that said that's what it was. Said the dominant buck was the dominant buck making that noise.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was the big one that was doing it. He was big.
That's interesting.
Yeah. I've never heard one click like that.
Yep.
But
I can always learn, can't you?
It's so wild. Deer
bomb.
vocalizations are so elusive. I mean, I've hunted my whole life, killed quite a few deer, been in the woods a lot in the fall, and I mean, it's like, did I hear a buck deer grunt last year? I don't even know if I did. I mean, like, it's not
really.
Like, yeah, I don't know. I just don't. You don't hear them all the time. Do you guys hear them all the time?
Oh yeah.
Y'all just don't ever kill them. Y'all just let them go.
Hey, especially in the Midwest, they're really
Right.
vocal out there. But I mean, I hear it every year here in Arkansas.
Yeah.
If it's a rut and I don't see a buck and he's not grunting, then I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear a lot. I hear a lot of grunting.
I've
Yeah.
heard a lot of different vocalizations, but the clicking one to me is kind of new.
Yeah.
Now I don't
Well,
hear
that's
a lot of
interesting.
fighting, like clashing of antlers. No, they'll tickle them, but they just don't get after it like they do in Midwest.
Right. Well, hey, I meant to do this at the beginning, but I got to do it now. So Phelps Game Calls just came out with a full new series of grunt tubes. They've got multiple styles of grunt tubes.
That one's a clicker.
Yeah, they got a click and call. Jason Phelps. Yeah, let me know what. So Rusty Johnson, the other thing that he has is secret grunt calls. He's clicking on.
Trying to click.
He's trying to click it.
Yeah.
These calls are there's an Alpha Pro, which is a smaller call with a tube on it, and then there's the Beta Pro with it's acrylic. They're freeze proof. If you fill it full of saliva blowing on the thing, it's not going to freeze. What I like about them is that you can blow them super soft. Sometimes when you blow on a call, you gotta back before it goes, and you'll end up.
It blows easy.
You can blow it just as soft. I mean, sometimes a deer will be right up under your stand, and you can just barely hear him. And then sometimes he's out there 60, 70 yards, and you can hear him blah, blah. You know, a deer has a pretty big range of volume. And so, man, if you just want a soft grunt, to me, that's what makes a good grunt call. And they won't top out when you just blow on them. Sometimes a reed sticks on one when you.
Yeah.
If a deer's out there at 120 yards and the wind's howling and you're just trying to throw a Hail Mary and just hit it hard, sometimes the reed will flatten out and it won't blow. But these Phelps calls are the real deal, and they were launched on October the 11th. So this here podcast comes out on October the 12th. So you can buy these at themeeter.com, phelps.com. So they've got a couple of tubes, the Alpha and the Beta, that have the tube on them, which man, I like.
You
the sound
can
of
get
it.
some good inflection with that flexible tube. It sounds good.
Yeah, but if you want a smaller call and you don't want the tube, they make they call this the Omega Hybrid, which is like an acrylic call, kind of almost the size of like a goose call, no tube, and it doesn't have the tube. Rusty
I
likes
think the
tube.
tube's the ticket. Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, those are for sale. Phelps Game Calls. They've also got a doe bleat and a fawn call, full line of deer calls. So
Fawn, that's what I like.
that's what Brent likes
Good
to
on
kill.
sandwich.
That's what he wants to get in.
Good tender one.
Yeah, that's a Brent call there.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
I look like that'd be a bear attractant out
Yeah,
west.
I'd use that as a predator call. Now, I told on this podcast. No, it wasn't on this podcast. Y'all remember the story of my son Bear? He's got a cool name. When he couldn't have been more than a year and a half old, 18 months or something. I took him to hang a tree stand with me, and it was in like late summer. Just carried him in, carried my sticks and my tree stand, and it's before season. We're just going to hang a stand. I start hanging the ladders and get way up in the tree, so I'm like 20 foot up in the tree. And Bear gets scared down on the ground because I'm not down there with him, and he's scared, and he starts crying, just straight up, just crying. And I'm trying to hang this tree stand, so I can't go down to him, so I'm just like, hey, buddy, it's okay, it's okay. I'm whispering. He just gets crying all the more. He cries for, I don't know, a couple of minutes, and directly I hear the woods just coming, just crash, crash. I mean, I hear something running in. It's real thick woods, and a doe deer comes busting in and skids to a stop. I mean, I remember it being like 6 or 8 feet from him. Maybe it was 15 feet, but this doe deer, it was real thick. And she just ran
Right
to what
into
she
him.
believed was a fawn in distress, skid to a stop, sees him, and then disappears. And Bear quit crying and looked up at me, and he said, "Deer." he knew what a deer was. He said, "Deer." It was like, it was just like he said, "You're not going to believe this, Dad. I was down there on the ground, and a deer ran up to me."
She thought it was a deer and it was a baby bear.
So, deer calls. Deer calls.
Brent needs to get a spotted fawn pocket watch deal
That'll
to go with that coon.
That'll be for Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ralph, I told you, I asked you when you came, I said, bring your best deer story. So we want to hear it if you got it.
Man, I've got a lot of great deer stories, but one of my favorites was actually I was living in Lone Oak, and I put in for a permit, a muzzleloader permit draw on Holland Bottoms WMA right outside of Cabot. And my brother-in-law, who is from Eastern Arkansas, he put in for as well, and he drew one. And I've always wanted to hunt out of a canoe. And so I went to a place there in Ozark, bought a used canoe, so proud of that thing. And I was like, I'm going to float this canoe in Holland Bottoms, this permit hunt. I'm going to kill a deer. And so the Friday before the permit hunt, I go out there. The ditches are dry. The bios are dry. There was hardly any water in place. And I was so brokenhearted. And the mosquitoes were eating my eyes out. And I told my brother-in-law, I said, we're not going to be able to hunt. The mosquitoes are so bad. He said, oh, no, I'm from Eastern Arkansas. I can do this. And at that time, I worked on a fish farm, so I was pretty used to mosquitoes.
Yeah.
But there weren't thermocells, though.
Oh, no, there were no thermocells at that time. This is
Thermocells won't touch them.
And I was like, this is it. I can't believe I just bought the canoe. And so we went out Saturday morning, hunted that morning, about 9 o'clock. And my brother-in-law, he tapped out. He said, I can't handle this. I said, I told you it's bad. So we're walking out with our muzzleloaders between our tails, between legs, and these two girls, two ladies, in black sweats and rubber boots. They're walking out with what I thought were howitzers over their shoulder, that big 54 caliber muzzleloaders, big old octagon barrels. And my brother-in-law goes, they're more of a man than I am. And so we were kind of whipped, and I said, well, I'm not going to hunt this evening. So Sunday rolled around the next day, and a storm blew in, and it was a cold front, just dumped like 2 inches of rain. And so I called my brother-in-law. I said, hey, let's go back out there. Let's just look and see what happened. Mosquitoes were gone. There was water and everything, and a lot of the hunters left, and this was a 5-day permit. So we walked in there with our boots. We had hip boots on, and we found this ridge, I don't know, probably about 3/4 of a mile in. We'd walked down this road that was flooded, and it was just like a tunnel. It was just beautiful. Just everything was calm. I could swear up and down there was snowflakes every once in a while. And this was in October. And so we walked in there, and I had my stand with me, and I said, Clay, we're gonna hunt this afternoon. I said, this is perfect. And I was just riding on cloud 9. And so I hung my stand, and I said, you meet me back here at the truck at 2 o'clock. We're going to get the canoe. We're going to ride in here. I'll hunt this end of the ridge, and you hunt the other end. So there was a bolt missing on my deer stand. It was just a lock-on stand. I said, well, I'm going to go back, find a bolt for that. You meet me here. We'll go hunting. So I go back, and I was like, I told my wife, I said, I'll load up the canoe. I said, I got to find a bolt, and I'm going to meet Clay. So we get down there, and 2 o'clock rolls around, and he's not there. 2:30 rolls around. He's not there. I'm like, I got to go. So I get in the canoe, and I take off, get out there, hang my stand. At 3 o'clock, straight up, I'm sitting in my deer stand, and it starts to mist. And I got my muzzleloader laying across my lap, and so I had this old Army poncho, and I just laid it across this gun. And I when I'm deer hunting, I like to chew tobacco. That's just what I like to do. And so I just put one in my mouth. About 2 minutes later, I hear this walking I could hear water splashing. I was like, what is that? And so I kind of look, and this deer comes up out of the water. I could tell he was a buck, and he wasn't a huge buck. He's a 2.5-year-old buck. And he walks up, and he just lays down about 40 yards from me. He just lays down. And I'm thinking, man, this is the coolest thing ever. And so every time I'd try to spit, that deer would look at me. and I had the wind in my favor, so I knew I was good. And at some point, I'm thinking, I'm not swallowing. I'm not going to. Well, at 3:30, I hear some more water coming, just rustling around. I thought, man, there's more deer. And I look back there, and it's my brother-in-law. And he had to have hip boots to get in there. And he walks up there. So I got the deer about 40, 45 yards laying down in front of me. And my brother-in-law has a lounge chair, and he's like 75 yards to my right. And he never sees me in the tree, even though I'm wearing orange. And I'm sitting there watching him open this lounge chair. He takes a leak, and then he gets deer urine out. And this deer's laying there, and there's some coralberry about, I don't know, knee high. And this deer would peek his head up over, and I'm watching this deer watch my brother-in-law, who's not 75 yards from him, this whole time for 2 hours. My brother'd get up, and he'd cough. And I'm thinking, Clay, what are you doing? And so I'm watching this deer, and then every so often that deer would jerk his head, and he would look at me.
Oh, man. He had both of you right there.
Both of us. But it really, I mean, watching his reaction to Clay really, I mean, opened my eyes to how, you could be in the woods and deer's laying down. He's watching you. And as long as he don't smell you, or it's no quick reaction or anything, he may not jump.
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting there watching the deer, and I'm learning. I'm having a heck of a time other than not being able to spit.
You're mad at your brother-in-law,
Yeah.
who
And so
just
I'm
happens to be named Clay,
Yeah.
which is nothing against Clay.
Yeah, no Clay, but and I love Clay. We've had a lot of different adventures together. But I'm like, what in the world are you doing? And so at 5:05, this deer had laid down beside two trees. There was a bigger tree and a smaller tree right next to it, and all I could really see was the front part of his chest and his neck when he would stick his head out to look at Clay.
Now, were you wanting to shoot this deer?
Well, so, when he first got there, I thought, man, it's early in the hunt. I'm not even going to shoot this deer. Who knows what else is going to come up here? So as it got darker and darker and my brother-in-law started making more and more noise, I'm thinking, if I'm going to shoot one, I better do it now because there was water all around us. The chances of finding him with a muzzleloader in the dark through the water is pretty low. I thought, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it now. And so, because a lot of my buddies had told me I was crazy for buying that canoe, for hunting in hauling bottoms with a canoe. And so I wanted some vindication, And so that deer, so finally he reaches back to lick himself, and I pulled that poncho off, that muzzleloader, put a cap on it, and I just waited about 10 more seconds, and he kind of turned his head, and I pulled the muzzleloader up. And my brother-in-law made a sound, and that deer stuck his neck out, and I shot him right in the neck. And his head, it's a wonder he didn't break his jawbone. His head hit so hard, And then I could hear, through the smoke, I could hear my brother-in-law's couple of expletives. Because
He didn't know you was there.
He didn't know I was there.
That's good.
And so when the smoke clears, I could see him picking himself up off the ground because he had fallen back out of his chair and scared him so bad. And so I yelled over, I said, Clay. And he's like, and then he yelled a couple more expletives. And so I got down, I said, hey, you ain't going to believe this. So I explained to him what happened this whole time. And I said, hey, come help me pull this deer out. And he said, you didn't shoot no deer. You just did that to scare me. I said, oh, no, I did. It's laying right over here. And so he walked up there to it, and he said a couple more expletives. He was like, I can't believe this. So we pulled that deer up to the canoe, and I've got a picture of him, that deer, and me in that canoe floating out in that tunnel of trees on that water.
Oh,
and
nice.
that was probably one of the greatest deer hunts that I've ever had. Because I told those boys at work that I was coming back with a deer, and they was like, "Oh, you're lying." And so when they seen that deer, they're like, "I can't believe that."
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, that's a great
That's
story.
a great
Yeah,
story.
and I've got those antlers in a picture in my office at work. I mean, that's got to be one.
You need to text me a picture of that photo.
Yeah,
if
I
you would.
Yeah,
I'd like to see that.
yeah,
That'd be cool.
yeah. It was just one of those that it went from a super high to get the hunt on that permit hunt and knowing what caliber deer there to a super low with the mosquitoes and no water and buying a canoe and not getting floated back to a super high again. I mean, it was just a roller coaster ride of a hunt.
Oh, that's cool.
That's a good one, man. That is a good one.
Whitetail Institute launched the food plot revolution in 1988 with a concentration on research and real-world testing of forage products specifically for whitetail deer. Whitetail Institute's research and development team of agronomy experts provide effective, personalized service. I've been using Imperial Whitetail Clover for a long time in a food plot back behind my house. In 2007, I killed the biggest buck of my life over an Imperial Whitetail Clover small quarter-acre food plot. Imperial Whitetail Clover is the only clover scientifically developed through years of selective breeding. Clover Extreme genetic stability provides extreme cold tolerance, disease, and drought tolerance. It really does. Clover is coated with Whitetail Institute's Rain Bond, a polymer coating added for enhanced seedling survivability. They have an exclusive offer for Bear Grease listeners, 15% off Imperial Clover when you use the code BEAR at whitetailinstitute.com. That's whitetailinstitute.com and use code BEAR for 15% off. Ready to win Mother's Day and cement your reputation as the best gift giver in the family? Give the moms in your life an Aura digital picture frame preloaded with decades of family photos. She'll love looking back on these memories and seeing what you're up to today. Even better, with unlimited storage and an easy-to-use app, you can keep updating mom's frame with new photos, so it's the gift that keeps on giving. And this is not a joke. Juju Newcomb has an Aura frame, and we share photos, and they're incredible. Also, my mother-in-law has one. We have them. They truly are really good, really high quality. The Aura frame is easy to set up. It takes just 2 minutes to set up a frame using the Aura app. It also adjusts the display depending on light levels in the room to maintain the true color of your photos. For real, the digital screen is amazing. Right now, Aura has a great deal for Mother's Day. Listeners can save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $30 off plus free shipping on their best-selling frame when you use code BEAR, B-E-A-R, BEAR. That's auraframes.com. Use code BEAR at checkout to save. Terms and conditions apply. Sport Dog is the most recognized brand in the hunting dog training industry. Born in 2003 in Knoxville, Tennessee, Sport Dog was forged by a passionate group of hunters and dog trainers who intimately understood the challenges of the field and the special connection between hunters and their dogs. The people at Sport Dog know that having a well-trained hunting dog is more than just having a reliable partner. It's a commitment to their safety and unlocking their full potential. The Sport Dog promise to customers is simple: gear the way you design it. Every product Sport Dog builds is meticulously designed and rigorously tested in the field, ensuring it withstands the toughest conditions you and your dog may encounter. Trust Sport Dog, where innovation meets passion, to elevate your hunting experience and strengthen the bond with your local companion. Using tracking equipment on my squirrel and coon dogs is extremely important to me to track my squirrel dogs and my one old coon dog that's not very good. Get 20% off your first purchase using the code BEARGREASE. Go to www.sportdog.com/beargrease to learn more.
All right, so now it's time that we do the Bear Grease Swap Shop.
Here we go.
Yep. So did y'all know that we have our listeners send stuff in to beargrease@themeateater.com, stuff that they want to sell.
Wow.
But they have to have their Instagram handle, their Facebook handle to be able to sell it. And we pick and choose what we put on here, but here we go. All right, we've got this. We've got a listing from a man by the name of Buck Lester with an Instagram handle of buck.lester, and he has. This is what he says. He said, "Hey, I heard on the podcast that one of you mentioned hoping to have a 1982 Trans Am." Uh-oh. He said, "Well, I don't have a Trans Am, but I do have the next best thing. A 1987 El Camino with a 305 small block and a 4-barrel carb. My first vehicle and a heck of a rig." He has a picture of it here, and it's
4-barrel carb. You can really get
it's
lost.
a nice looking El Camino, man. Ooh, and he says it does need. It says 149,000 miles, 4 stock rims, 4 Krager rims, power locks and windows. Has some large dents and rust, but it runs and drives. Needs some tires. $5,000. All right, so you can contact Buck Lester at buck.lester on Instagram. That's pretty legit, man. You haul out some deer and that. And
they'd be talking about you.
That's the best
they
of
would.
both worlds.
That could be like the
That's
Bear
like a
Grease
mullet, man.
machine.
That's like having a
Yeah,
mullet.
man.
That's a Business in the front and party in the back.
Incredible. Okay, so this next one is this is actually a pretty functional one. This guy says, howdy. He said, calling all fellow Sasquatches, which Rusten might qualify for that. How tall are you, Rusten?
6'3",
6'3". What size shoe do you wear?
13.
Okay.
Sweet
Calling
Jesus.
all fellow Sasquatches, I got me a pair of Loa Tibbet hunting boots, size 15. They're a little too small for me. No telling how tall this guy is, as they fit more like a 14. Used for about a season and a half, $250 or best offer. So his Instagram handle is big_Sasky_man.
You got to spell Sasky.
BIG_SASKY__MAN. Nice looking pair of Loa boots. I would imagine those are $400 or $500 boots. Been worn just a couple times. Okay.
Well, Clay, I just looked at my shoe. It's a 14.
You wear a 14.
That's right.
So-
Man, he might be marketing directly to you. You need some real good boots, I bet.
Break out the pocketbook.
Okay. And here we have our last Bear Grease Swap Shop entry for the day. We've got I'm going to read what this man says. For sale, a 13-foot Boston Whaler boat with a 30-horsepower Yamaha outboard and an easy loader trailer. He's asking $5,500, all right? This Boston Whaler is ready to help any PNW outdoorsman. What's that mean?
Pacific Northwest.
Pacific
Okay,
Northwest.
gotcha.
Rusty
Good
with
job,
the
Rusty.
facts.
PNW outdoorsmen on their hunting and fishing adventures is perfect for duck hunting on the coast, trolling sockeye at Baker Lake, or oh man, he's giving away fishing spots. Getting to the secluded upland bird spots on the Columbia or the Snake. He's a salesman too.
Right where Rusty
this guy's
said.
a salesman. Or any of the inland lakes. I recently got the boat dialed in, but I'm building my house and could use the extra cash. Sometimes a good salesman will tell you a little bit more information than you need to know to try to rope you in to trust him.
Yeah.
You with me? Mm-hmm. And this man saying, I need a little cash to build my house. I like it. Details. Recently repacked the trailer hubs with grease and installed new trailer lights. The motor is a 2-stroke and runs well. New steering, new throttle cables, new battery, 35-pound thrust electric trolling motor included. Built out of 1-inch marine grade plywood. Built out of 1-inch marine grade plywood. It was stained and sealed. The price also includes a 5-gallon gas tank and a fish finder.
Holy cow.
And fire extinguishers, flares, a horn, 3 rod holders, a telescoping paddle. Man, contact Cameron Stone.
I can see Rusty.
Oh, wow. Cameron put his email address. Cameron, you don't want to do that, brother. But we're going to put it because he gave it to us.
Hey, I can see
You can email
Rustin-
Cameron if you're serious.
Where at? Where can you email
At
him?
Cameron.s.stone1994@gmail.com.
I can see Rustin right now power sliding with them number size 14s.
14 or 15s, they fit
Those
like a
size
14.
15
Good looking
boots
boat.
and the El Camino hooked up to this Boston Whaler.
Oh, man.
Sliding
I
up
might
in
get
a,
all 3
Hey.
before this podcast drops.
You know what kind of street cred you'd have loading that thing into Biomeda to go.
That's what I'm talking about. Roll up at the Long Pond.
Oh, wow. This is like a package deal.
Now, you said it comes with a 5-gallon gas tank. Is that full or empty? Because that'll affect the value.
That's a good
A
question.
whole lot.
You'll have to email Cameron Stone.
All right.
You
Well,
need some boxing gloves if you're going to buy meat in that.
Yeah, but if you pull up the El Camino with that, they ain't nobody gonna mess with it.
That's great.
If Rustin don't want it, then Meat Eater needs to buy it for a new DOS boat episode they put
Yeah,
out.
yeah. Pull the El Camino across the country. I'd like to take that El
Take the El
Camino
Camino
bear
and-
hunting. How about that?
strap a bear on top.
There you
Yeah.
go. Put a winch in the back. That way, pull him up in the back a lot
Yeah.
easier.
Buy that El
Yeah.
Camino and put that boat behind it.
Phew.
Mullet machine.
Man. Yeah. Grow a mullet.
Ralph, I got a question before we get out of here.
Shoot.
Forever, and I've seen a study that was published out of, I think it was South Carolina Department of Natural Resources, did a study on the effects of coon hunting bothering deer or deer hunters. If you got an opinion on that, if you as far as what the
I do. So growing up, coon hunting was my number one sport.
okay,
Even above deer hunting.
there you go.
Nice.
We coon hunted 6 nights a week, and the only reason we didn't coon hunt on Sunday night was we had school Monday morning.
Right.
Which we coon hunted the rest of the week, so it really didn't matter. So I didn't figure that out. But we coon hunted all the time, and there were a lot of nights that we would walk in on a treed coon, and our lights would hit deer. and we'd walk right past them, and it never bothered them. Right. I think what happens is when you get a dog that does chase deer, or you hunt in a location, maybe 4 or 5 times in a week, then you may, be creating some disturbance on those deer. But you got to remember, deer are they're primarily what's considered crepuscular. So they move early morning and late evening. That's their primary times to move. Now they'll eat all day long, but at nighttime they have better vision, and so they don't probably get as much disturbance at that time of the night. So it probably doesn't bother them. I think what bothers them, and it's just like deer leases, when somebody hunts a deer stand, they ride that 4-wheeler in there 7 days a week. That deer patterns that person. They know when they're there and when they leave. Yeah. And so it's, as opposed to coon hunters, you may walk into one place one time in a night, right, and you may not be back there forever. I just don't think that just one, by happenstance encounter with some hunters and a coon dog, that deer is going to change its movements or its patterns based on that. Now, if those dogs get after that deer, then yeah, there may be some change. But if that,
and I read that. Have you read that? Seen that study?
I have.
There was even it was like there was one it was an enclosed place, and they had these collared deer in there. It was like thousands of acres, and they had this collared deer, and the one deer that was actually chased by the coon dog that struck him and run him. Before daylight the next morning, that deer had made his way back and was within just a few feet of where he was bedded. And that's telemetry data that they got off of that. He came back and laid back down where that dog had jumped him. So, and I've seen it forever. I coon hunt a lot. And
my buddy
we'll be right there on a tree and looking around. Hey, there's a deer laying there.
Yeah.
My buddy Ford Van Fossen, who works for First Light, conservation director for First Light.
Yep, I know.
He once brought up that study to me, and he said, yeah, you knew that was funded by the Coon Hunters of America, didn't you? They had those biologists in their back pocket. He was joking. I thought it was a good joke, though.
Yeah. It's probably funnier when he said
it. Definitely.
Hey, thank you all for coming. Ralph, thanks for coming up, man. Thanks for what you're doing with all your work inside of Arkansas deer hunting.
Yeah, man.
And we know you guys are working hard. And
I appreciate being here. I had your time.
Man, and now that I know you're a coon hunter, you're going to have to come back.
Yeah.
You're going to have to come back and be on the Render podcast.
Strapping, man. If you can kill it and eat it, I'm all about it.
There you go. Good. Johnson boys, great to have y'all. Y'all got some big bucks tied up somewhere, don't you?
We do have them found.
Just busted. You're busted. This was your trap. You got them tied up? Why don't you tell us about that?
We got them found.
There you go.
Hey, Clay, you won't believe it, but I was inadvertently after a 200-inch deer on opening week.
No way.
I didn't know it yet, though.
Really?
Yeah. So I got some intel.
You're not going to tell me what state, though.
Yeah, Arkansas.
Oh.
We just scored it.
Northwest Arkansas.
Oh, the guy killed it. It's the one the guy killed. No way. You were hunting over by him.
Well, technically, I was hunting the same area. I won't say where, but I had a guy that gives me some intel, feeds me some intel, and he sent me a picture of it like 2 days before it was killed. And I was like, okay, I'm getting ready. I'm amped up. I'm about to put cameras out. And then I get a picture because I know the guy that killed it. And he sent me a picture. He said, will y'all score this? I said, oh, it's that buck.
I'll be darned. So it was
202.
202 and 3/8.
Killed with a bow?
Crossbow.
Here's one that just got killed off of public land in Arkansas. Wattensaw WMA outside of Hazen.
Oh, yeah. That's a beautiful deer. Wow, look at that G2 it's a 3-prong G2. Look at that. It looks like a G2. Did I see that right?
Wow.
Man, that's a dandy.
People always ask me, where do I need to go kill big bucks?
That's a dandy.
You can kill them anywhere as long as you can put some age on them. Yeah. I mean, our entire state has genetic potential. It's all about, if you want big bucks, you got to pass them when they're little bucks. That's just, really.
That's what you got to do.
100%. Good stuff.
So y'all are on some deer. Yeah, there's that big deer. Well, thank you all. Mo, good to see you, man. Thanks for coming. I know you'll have a big buck story here soon.
I hope.
All right, guys. See you next time.
This show is sponsored in part by BetterHelp. Around New Year's, we get obsessed with how to change ourselves instead of just expanding on what we've already done right. Maybe you finally organized one part of your space and you want to tackle another. Or maybe you're taking your supplements every morning and now you actually want to eat breakfast. In the last year, I've been more diligent about going to the gym on a regimented schedule, and it's made a lot of difference in my life. Therapy helps you find your strengths so that you can ditch the extreme resolutions and make changes that really stick. Therapy is helpful for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. It empowers you to be the best version of yourself. It isn't just for those who've experienced major trauma. If you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Celebrate the progress you've already made. Visit BetterHelp.com/Grease today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp.com/Grease.
I'm sure a lot of you guys remember the old ceremonial hunting tradition of eating the heart out of the first animal you kill. Meat from those organs are among the most nutrient-rich foods on the planet. You can get those same benefits your ancestors craved via convenient daily capsules from Heart and Soil. Find out more at heartandsoil.co. And remember, use code MeatEater for 10% off your purchase.